that march in Pretoria. But let's now cross to our reporter Tumaole Mohlaoli. He's live from Pretoria joining that march. Tumaole, good afternoon to you. So the streets of Pretoria occupied by this march. What's the support like?
Well, a very good afternoon to you, Natasha. The support can be described as quite great. Some of the supporters here have even gone so far to say it is overwhelming. I can tell you that the mood is quite buoyant. The supporters have been very vocal, and their songs and their chants and their slogans could be heard echoing off the walls of the buildings as they made their way from the Burgers Park through to the south lawns of the Union buildings, where we currently are at the entrance, at the southernmost fence of the Union buildings. Behind me, you can see the supporters still making their way through. This is essentially the tail of the march. The majority of the supporters have now entered to the south lawns of the Union buildings. As you can see there, everyone in great spirits, and of course, despite being in great spirits, the thrust of the march is not lost to the supporters. I earlier spoke to some ANC supporters who have come from as far afield as the Northwest Province, some coming from Limpopo and others coming from other parts of Gauteng, far east rand of the province, being bussed in here. And they say that it is important to be part of this march because the issue of transformation and the issue of racial unity in the country has become of great concern. Many are saying that transformation is still an issue that needs to be addressed, economic transformation by the ruling party. And while they remain committed to the unity of South Africa, many people feel aggrieved when issues and instances of racism rear their head, because they feel that as the majority of South Africans, they have been the good partner, they have been the good neighbor, and they feel that that needs to be reciprocated in terms of the unity of the country. Many are saying that they're very happy by government's announcements that the issue of racism might be criminalized in the near future, and they're saying that this will put an end to a very negative chapter in our history. I mean, in recent months, we've seen very many high-profile, racially motivated and racially negative instances where people have taken to social media and made very unsavory statements. Many here are saying that they are not angered but hurt that, 21 years so into our democracy, we still have these prevailing attitudes. So this is the situation as we speak right now. Many of the marchers here are indeed in great spirits, many of them singing at the top of their lungs and saying that it is important for South Africa to have such a march, and that they would prefer that government would fast-track the process of trying to decriminalize this scourge of racism. With that, respect to you in the studio, Natasha.
Tumaole, thank you very much for that update. So as we can see, there's strong support for this anti-racism march. It's a sea of yellow in the streets of Pretoria. But at the same time, our reporter Aldrin Sampear is standing by at the Union buildings, where the marchers are expected to arrive later today. He joins us now live. Aldrin, good afternoon. Certainly the lawns of the Union buildings have seen quite a bit of action over the past few months. What's expected when the marchers arrive there later today?
Well, right now I can tell you that a few members of the ANC as well as supporters have arrived here at the Union building. So expect this to be a really short program. Right now we have NEC members of the ANC as well as the various structures giving their messages of support as they listen into the Memorandum of Demands that will be handed over by the Secretary General of the ANC. We understand that President Jacob Zuma won't be the person accepting the Memorandum of Demands. He's currently meeting with black professionals under umbrella associations like the Black Management Forum as well as the Black Lawyers Association. And at that meeting where the president is meeting these black professionals, on the agenda is the issue around racism as well and social cohesion. A big question has been what role the corporate South Africa can play in harnessing this discussion around racism. Remember that was it last month when Chris Hart, Standard Bank economist, tweeted that 25 years after apartheid, the victims still have a sense of entitlement and still have hatred towards the minorities. Standard Bank then responded by suspending him, saying that the tweet has racial undertones. And the conversation that some people have been asking, that how do you get corporate South Africa not to be reactionary but rather to enhance and harness the conversation around social cohesion in the country?
Absolutely, Aldrin. And with that, if we look at this march, the build-up to this march, there has been a bit of criticism towards it. But surely the point is that despite who organizes the march, it is a worthy cause to be a part of.
Well, Natasha, I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm struggling to get, I'm getting some feedback from the studio right now. But what I can tell you is that the ANC has been quite clear that this march is not a march about showing force, but the real cause here is to have that conversation, getting the country to start discussing the issues around racism. What we do know in the past few weeks, for instance, there have been other various marches from political parties, such as the DA leading its job march through the Joburg CBD, as well as the EFF members marching to Constitutional Hill. And the ANC says that this march for them is not about showing force ahead of the municipal elections, because that's the argument that some analysts have put on this case, or the ANC, as they put it, marching on itself. Yesterday, Gwede Mantashe is saying that it does not mean because the ANC is the incumbent government that it cannot march to institutions of government and hand over memorandum of demands. And we expect one of those issues that will be in the memorandum of demands is the issue around criminalizing racism and how exactly that would work, because there has also been criticism around how do you criminalize racism and how do you define really what racism is, because when racism is criminalized, that would mean that you can't go around and accuse any person of being racist without them being convicted in a court of law.
Aldrin, thank you very much for that update. Our reporter Aldrin Sampear live from the Union Buildings, where that memorandum is expected to be handed over later today, giving us that update on the anti-racism march which has been organized by the ANC.